Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show as we start your day off on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Hall of Fame legendary boxing writer, Jack Hirsch, bringing you Sports Breakfast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Jack, today's guest we have coming on, Byron Williams, our NFL analyst, former New York Giants wide receiver star. We also have our weekly guest, our friend Keith Angle from Sports Scope, from TGI Sports Talk. Thank you, and the Philly Sports Guy, the social media sensation out there. And we have a special guest coming up with us, folks. In the 9:30, around 9:30, Ron Lipton, famous boxing referee, writer, and also did a little boxing when he first started. So he's been around boxing for a long time, Jack, and you set him up as a guest, and a great get for you, Jack.
I'm glad you're giving me some credit, Mac. I mean, you're usually reluctant to do so, but don't even wish me a good morning, but at least you gave me the credit, so that's great.
Well, when I ask you good morning, Jack, you know me, good morning, Mac. You know.
Let's yeah. Well, we have a stacked show, Mac. I'm conditioned today to say less because we have quality guests.
Yes,
and we always have quality guests, so we got to give them a chance to speak.
Yes, definitely, Jack. So let's start with a little sports news, and of course, the MLB playoffs have started. Boston beat the Yankees in a wild card game, and they went up against Tampa Bay last night, and they ended up getting shut out 5-0, Jack. The Tampa Bay shortstop, Wander Franco, goes 2 for 4, leading with 1 RBI, leading the Tampa Bay offense to the victory. Shane McClanahan pitching went 5 innings, 5 hits with no runs. Eduardo Rodriguez for the Red Sox got pulled right after 1 2/3 innings. He gave up 2 runs. So the interesting thing to me, Jack, was with the lead 4-0. And the pitcher wasn't paying attention to Diaz on third, and he just stole home on him. And to see the pitcher's reaction to that was priceless. And I'm glad to see that, the Major League Baseball still has some of those things from the past that really made the game exciting.
Yeah, Randy Arozarena, I mean, he just took off smart. He timed the pitcher. He was noticing the pitcher just wasn't paying attention to him. Think about all the times we did that in Little League. We would eye the pitcher. And then actually, even at a young age, we're conditioned. Is he paying attention to me? And if you could see he's really not paying attention, and you study him out for a pitch or two beforehand, and you have a lead off the base, all of a sudden you break and you take home old-time baseball. Jackie Robinson used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
You just kind of like time the pitcher. Billy Martin used to say I never bought this, but he used to say the easiest base to steal is home. Okay, that was his feeling because you can time a pitcher, especially he has a long windup. And once a pitcher, and this wasn't the case yesterday, but if you steal home when the pitcher's in a windup, once he goes into his windup, especially a long windup, and you break for home, he can't step off. He's going to balk all of a sudden. So you kind of have him in a spot. But yesterday, Randy Arozarena, timed it beautifully. Nelson Cruz's home run yesterday, kind of hitting the top. And I've been in that stadium, and it's a weird stadium where the Rays play. I mean, just sitting there watching the game, you have this noise level. You feel like you're at a construction site. That's what I kind of felt like sitting there. It wasn't a hazard where you have to wear one of the hard hats, but I'm looking around like the noise level and everything. It just seems out of whack, that stadium. I think the Rays, it's time for them to get a new stadium with what they've meant to Tampa. They're not playing in the most attractive ballpark, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, they got their special rules for Tampa Bay on the offense, right? If you hit the catwalk, it's a home run. You can play the balls off the rafters. I mean, I've seen guys catch the ball off the rafters for an out. I mean, it's like you're playing backyard baseball where you have certain rules that only apply to that game. It's quite weird, but yeah. So the Rays do shut out Boston. They go up 1-0, and in the other game, Houston, the DH Jordan Alvarez goes 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, leading Houston to a 6-1 win over Chicago. Lance McCullers pitches 6 2/3 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts for the win. Lance Lynn gets pulled after only 3 2/3 inning, giving up 6 hits and 5 runs, Jack. So your Chicago prediction's in a little bit of trouble right now.
It is. It's best of 5. You lose a game. I don't want to hear it's only one game. There are not that many games. I mean, you can't afford to lose 3, otherwise you're out.
Right.
So I don't like to brush it off. It's funny you mentioned the name Lance Lynn, and we've been talking about the Yankees needing pitching. They had Lance Lynn, and Lance Lynn didn't perform as well for the Yankees as he has for the White Sox, who he's been an all-star for, and they even signed him to an extension during the season. But something about these big games, you have pitchers like Lance Lynn who pitched very well during the regular season, and then they come to the playoff game, and they don't pitch well. And the playoffs are like a season onto itself. Okay, you're starting a new season, you're in the tournament, and does it outdo everything you've done earlier? You know, I'm not sure. I remember the year Roger Clemens had a 20-1 record for the Yankees, and then the first game in the playoffs, he pitched poorly, was taken out. He had a chance to redeem himself later when the Yankees came back. I remember Randy Johnson, his first year with the Yankees. He's there in 2005. He pitches against the Angels. He starts in the playoffs and gets pulled early. He pitched terribly. And then in the final 5th and deciding game, he came in relief with the Yankees down 5-2. He pitched 4 innings of 1 hit ball. In a way, he redeemed himself. But the bottom line is the Yankees still lost the series. So it's very vital. Even though it's maybe just one game, it's a short window. A pitcher's pitch great during the year. He better deliver in the postseason, because if he doesn't, it really undoes some of the good work he did during the year.
I agree, because, just like with Cole is definitely an ace, and he has a bad hamstring, Jack. So that affected him. There's no doubt that a hamstring injury affects your pitching. You rely a lot on your legs. People don't realize when you're pitching, to get that power, to get that, to get your windup technically right, your legs are very important. But in 5 games, I think is Jack, with winner take all, Cole is 1 for 4, and he could go the next year and win the Cy Young, and the Yankees get to another playoff series, and if he loses, that affects your outlook, your what your reputation is, Jack.
I don't know. Listen, it affects Cole this year. He was disappointing. He didn't deliver. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe that factored in. Maybe the Yankees know about that. So maybe we shouldn't hold it against the guy who's hurt, who really tries to gut it out. Last year, Cole did pitch very well, on short rest in the deciding Game 5 against Tampa Bay. He was pulled out. There was 1-1, I think, at the end of 7 innings, but he pitched very well in a big spot on short rest. It's all relative to what you expected a guy. Cole was made the highest paid pitcher in Major League history. So you expect him in a big spot to come through. No excuses. You get paid great. You, at the very least, you better pitch good if you're paid great, at the very bare minimum. And listen, he didn't deliver. I mean, his last regular season game was a big game. He pitched poorly. Had he pitched well in that game, maybe the Yankees would have had home field against the Red Sox. It probably wouldn't have made a difference, but you never know. And he's going to have to live with this. This was a very poor performance. And imagine that, Aaron Boone, he took out his ace after 50 pitches, only 50 pitches, because Cole's struggling. Normally, you allow an ace to try to get straightened out.
I agree, Joe.
Boone went to his bullpen. Maybe he thought Cole was hurt, but in all likelihood, Cole just didn't have it. So it's going to be a long winter for Garrett Cole, living this down.
I agree. And, Tampa Bay's pitcher, a young pitcher, did his thing. So, a lot of times, Jack, you just don't know, right? I mean, you don't know who's going to perform at what level, at what time, especially if you have a young pitcher. But Tampa Bay's pitcher pitched really good.
I'm going to tell you, Tampa Bay, Kevin Cash, he was heavily criticized last year for taking out Blake Snell early against the Dodgers. Everyone felt it was early. Blake Snell was dominating the Dodgers. When the Dodgers saw Kevin Cash taking out Blake Snell, they were grinning. They couldn't believe their good fortune.
Yeah.
It was an awful move as it turned out. He planned to do it before the game, but maybe he didn't count on Snell being so overly dominant. But it was a bad move by Kevin Cash. But they lose Blake Snell this year. They lose Charlie Morton this year. Tyler Glasgow, their pitcher on their staff now, is out, injured, hurt. So you're basically losing your number 1, 2, and 3 starters, what it amounts to from last year. And he pieced it together, bullpen by committee, a lot of games. So It's a great managing job by Kevin Cash. Between him and Alex Cora for manager of the year, I lean towards Alex Cora because Tampa Bay had a little more upside than Boston. Most people expected Tampa Bay to at the very least have a winning record and have an okay team. Outside of you, Mac, not many people expected that from Boston. You predicted good things. Kudos to you on their pick. But Boston was a last place team, not next to last. It was Baltimore last place. Baltimore's always in last place, right, in that division. But nothing was expected of Boston really this year for the vast majority of people. And look at the job Alex Cora, did for them. And they're still playing in October.
Yeah, and I expect Boston will be there for most of the series. It might go 4 games, Jack, maybe 5. I don't think Boston's going to fold up. Cora just knows how to play, coaching the World Series for sure. And Thursday night football, the Rams making their statement too after they bounced back from a loss last week. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 26-17. Matt Stafford goes 25 for 37, 365 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Running back Darnell Henderson has 17 carries for 82 yards and 1 touchdown. Sony Mitchell also added a rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Robert Woods goes 12 receptions for 150 yards. And the Rams D sacks Wilson twice. One of those sacks, Jack, Wilson hurt his fingers on his throwing hand, and they had to bring in, Geno Smith. There's a name from the past. But really, the Rams had that game. They were pretty much dominating that game throughout, and Russell got hurt, so he couldn't do his bag of tricks at the end of the game. DK Metcalf did have 2 touchdowns, Jack.
We laugh a little about Geno Smith. He'd only completed something like 5 passes in a year and a half with Seattle, or whatever the amount of time he's been there. But he took him on a drive down the field for a touchdown when they first got the ball. And he was criticized late in the game for throwing a big interception, but the receiver did fall down. Okay, the ball was where it was supposed to be, and those type things happen. For the Rams, it was a big game, and we saw something kind of officially we hadn't seen for a while, but I think it's more or less official now. Unofficial, unofficial, but the Rams have put separation between them and Seattle. Okay, there shouldn't be any doubt now who's the better team. The Rams beat them in the playoffs last year. A lot of people were still picking Seattle to go to the playoffs this year, to be a serious threat to the Rams. And even though Seattle played them tough and, of course, could beat the Rams on a given day, the Rams are flat out a better team, just a better all-around team. I mean, Seattle has a glamour receiver in DK Metcalf. But, Robert Woods, I mean, he's outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, they got Kupp there as a receiver. They got Deshaun Jackson. I mean, they've got weapons. And Matthew Stafford, he's the X factor. Is he truly one of the best quarterbacks in the league or not? Playing all the years with the Lions, you can't give him that distinction. But you could sense, and he was an elite quarterback on a poor team. Yeah. But let's see what Matthew Stafford does going forward. He's been outstanding this year. Matthew Stafford would be in the running for MVP now if the season ended.
Yeah, he definitely would, Jack. I mean, you look at Stafford's stats when he played with the Lions. He was, me and you don't play fantasy football at least like other people do. I'll fool around with it once in a while. But Matt Stafford's statistics was amongst the best, even on bad teams. Of course, he was throwing to catch up a lot of times, and he had a pretty good receiver in Megatron. But, I mean, for those years he played at Detroit, some of those years he was in the top 5 quarterbacks statistically in the league. Now he has a good team. We'll see what happens there. I mean, it's going to be very interesting with the Cardinals, the Rams, and 49ers, I think are the 3 teams that are going to battle for that first place slot. And as Byron said, the Cardinals are no joke either. So we'll talk to him about that when he comes in. I want to talk to him about his prediction there with the Cardinals. Other football news, the class with Big Ben, Rivers, as we mentioned, Eli. Eli came out and finally said, he's never come out personally and said this any time during his career, that it was really his decision, not his father's, to not go to San Diego. He felt San Diego's organization was in a little bit of trouble. And I guess you could say he was right in that San Diego, moving around and changing their names. And maybe he had a point that he didn't want to go to San Diego, and talked to not only the coaches, the GMs, the owners of both teams. He wanted them to keep it, a secret, which it became not a secret. And he finally said that he was the one that orchestrated that trade at the draft. Now, the Giants are happy about it, I would imagine, that, he led them to a couple Super Bowls. Of course, it wasn't just him, but he's had quite a career. Philip Rivers has had a good career too, Jack. I think he might be a Hall of Famer. But that whole class, you go Big Ben, Eli, and Philip Rivers, and yardage is amongst the best ever, and Super Bowls are up there with anybody, if not the best. And we have, a tale of 3 quarterbacks, right? Eli finally got out. He had enough. He played on a lot of bad Giant offensive line teams. He got rushed and hit a lot. Philip Rivers played very well for San Diego. He did very well for Indianapolis, I think, too, as an older quarterback. And then you have Big Ben, who maybe went a year too long, Jack. Maybe he stayed around too long, especially with the offensive line the Steelers have this year. I think maybe he's going to regret keeping that extra year instead of just going off and he's going to be a Hall of Famer too, Jack. There's no doubt about it.
Well, of those 3 quarterbacks, Eli, Philip Rivers, and Big Ben Roethlisberger, Big Ben was the best of the 3.
Yes.
I mean, he went to 3 Super Bowls and won 2. Let's not forget that. Rivers never quite went to a Super Bowl, but had he been in a little better situation, he would have. They were good Charger teams, very good Charger teams. They were certainly capable of going to a Super Bowl, and he didn't get them over the top. So some of the responsibility does fall on him. But like you said, you can make a good case for him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Eli, he wasn't, if you look at his overall record, he had about a 500 record over his whole career. But the bottom line is the Giants won 2 Super Bowls, and he led them on 2 great comebacks to pull those games out that very few elite quarterbacks even would have been able to do. Okay? So to me, Eli's a Hall of Fame. All 3 are Hall of Famers. As far as Big Ben hanging around too long, I'm not against the guy trying to scratch and claw and stay in the show as long as he can. I mean, he enjoys doing it. What else is Ben going to do with his life? Maybe maybe he doesn't want to play golf. Maybe he doesn't want to walk around a shopping center and pick out clothes. Maybe he doesn't want to stay outdoors at a cafe and have his drinks or whatever and just chill out and relax and live the easy life. They kind of like the excitement, the competitiveness. Let someone else make the decision for Ben. But what makes it hard for the Steelers and any team, when you have an iconic player, you don't want the exit to be too cruel or too heartless.
Right.
Right now, the Steelers don't have a better option than Big Ben. As far as their backups, Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins. And don't tell me Dwayne Haskins. Give me a break. A washed-up version of Big Ben is better than the Dwayne Haskins right now. Maybe Dwayne Haskins will develop under Mike Tomlin over time. Maybe. Okay? I have my doubts, but let's leave it at that. There's no one ready to come in for Big Ben to take him out. It's not like they have a young quarterback like a Justin Fields who's ready to take over the team. So the Steelers are going to have to make do. Big Ben could still be a game manager. Even a guy with faded skills has been around a long time, knows how to manage a game, and that's what the Steelers are going to have to gear their offense around. And maybe we're fooled. Maybe Big Ben has more in the tank than we think. The Steelers have had some injuries. Their running game hasn't been good. You never know. I think Big Ben has seen better days, but
I think if Roethlisberger was on a good team right now, he'd be playing okay. He could be a game manager. I don't think he can be a game manager under this team right now. Like Phillip Rivers with the Colts, right? The Colts have a solid team, and he can perform well. If Eli went to a team that was solid on the offensive line and stuff, he might have been able to continue like Tom Brady has. Tom Brady made a great move going to Tampa Bay. Drew Brees played under a great offensive coordinator, head coach, Sean Payton. So I think it all is relative to where you go and what team you're on. I think Eli made the right decision because he knew the Giants were still going to have to rebuild again as they were over the years he was quarterback there. And he just said, enough's enough. And by the way, Eli is the 7th all-time leader in yards thrown, too. So he is amongst the top 10 in a lot of categories. But again, I think if Ben went to the Colts or Ben went to the Patriots or something I think Ben would play a little bit better under that circumstance as opposed to playing under an offensive line or offensive system. Remember, they fired the offensive coordinator last year because they came away from what they used to be a physical offensive team. And you can't just flip the switch and become a physical offensive team in 1 year. It doesn't happen. So I think Big Ben loves football. I agree. There's other things you could do in football. You could become a coach. You could be involved in an organization. There's other things he could have done if he wanted to remain with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But he already has. He's going to take a beating this year, Jack. I don't care what kind of condition he's in. And it just seems kind of sad that he's going to end his career, I think, probably after this year. This is my opinion. Maybe he'll play another year. But I think he's going to end the career on a down note where he could have went out still okay. I mean, they won 11 in a row last year. They made the playoffs. I mean, that's an okay season. This year, I don't know, Jack.
I don't think anyone's going to remember how Big Ben really went out unless he really starts embarrassing himself down the line. I don't think it's going to get to that. It depends how much a guy loves being around the game, because a lot of these elite quarterbacks, they can hang around for low money and be a backup. Do you realize, Mac, no one realizes this, Eli Manning could still be on a Giant roster as a quarterback if he was willing to be a backup. Yeah. He could still be with the Giants. And Eli was offered that role before he retired to be Daniel Jones's backup, continue as a Giant. But Eli Manning said it's not fun being a backup because he likes to play. But my answer to Eli, if I was trying to persuade him, would be Eli, in today's NFL, guys are getting hurt. Backups get to play. Okay? Yeah.
But Jack, to be a starting quarterback that many years, win a couple of seasons, that's a downgrade, right? You're going to be backing up Daniel. Come on. That's what made him a winner. You can't have that attitude like, okay. You you just can't. I don't think any professional in any position that was really good at it is going to say, okay, I'll be back. I don't think they're built.
Listen, a publication I was writing for, I was the lead guy for a lot of years. Then it seemed I'd been relegated to a backup with assignments, this and that. And even though I didn't miss not, writing the stories, I had other things on my plate. It bothered me a lot, and I felt like I'm moving on. And then they explained to me, no, it's only circumstance that's, dictating that particular thing. And everything was made right, after that. But the feeling is, like you said it best, when you're in charge and you're running the ship, and now, now you go from head pilot and now you're the co-pilot.
Right.
You're second in command. Some guys can adjust to that. But for the most part, it's very hard. You really have to have the personality to make that adjustment. I sometimes wonder, you have these great teams. Let's say the Patriots, Bill Belichick. They're all 25 years old, 27 years old. You have Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers all on your roster, all three. how on earth are you going to keep all three happy? You're not just going to play Brady and keep the other two sitting. You're going to alternate back, forth, because you have a heck of a problem going on. But with the Steelers, with Big Ben, what would there be out there for him if the Steelers moved on from them? Chances are he might still want to play. He might not want to retire. The Houston Texans, for example, that would be an opening. You know, they'd maybe use Big Ben as a quarterback. But if you look around the NFL, Mac, most quarterback slots are taken. There's so few openings outside of being a backup. Who can you start for? Big Ben's not going to go to the Dolphins, you know, at this point. I know they got Tua. They're looking towards Deshaun Watson,
maybe Redskins, Jack. Maybe the Redskins would have took him. Maybe
it's a possibility. But if Heineke is playing well, and you got,
right. I'm just talking. I'm talking the beginning of the year, right? If he decided, if the Steelers were going to push out and he decided to stay in the game, I mean, you had the Eagles a possibility for him. You had Washington a possibility for him. You had maybe the Colts a possibility before him before the Wentz thing went down. Of course, that went on, I think, before the season started. But there were teams out there that could have used it started, even the Patriots. I mean, if the Patriots brought in Big Ben and let the kids sit for a while, there's possibilities is all I'm saying. And I just, you say we don't remember, we won't remember Big Ben having a bad year, but yet, as Byron pops in backstage, I remember Unitas' last year with the Chargers. I remember when Namath, in his last years when he wasn't playing with the Jets anymore, and it was pretty sad to watch these guys play. Backstage right now, folks, we got Byron Williams ready to join us with our NFL update, and I'm going to give him a little bit of an intro here.
He was a Giant, and he was a Cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat.
That's right, folks. They got their own show, Jim Jeffcoat and Byron Williams, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube only. So if you want to watch them, you go to YouTube channel on Northeast Streaming Sports. Subscribe when you get there. View this show that has all the great guests from former All-Pro Super Bowl champions, and you get some analysis from two guys that actually played the game. Good morning, Byron. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Byron. Listen, every Friday we have you in here. Of course, we talk about the Giants with you quite a bit at the end, but we get to cover some of the NFL. And I kind of want to congratulate you on your early prediction on, I almost said the St. Louis Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, who right now are the only undefeated team left in the NFL and probably one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, Byron.
Yeah, I kind of looked at the offseason. They did some exciting things, signing free agency guys, and I thought they plugged in some players that they need to have. And of course, I've been watching Kyler Murray since, 10, 15 years here in Texas, and he's just going to have a heart for the game. And so I figure if they can just put some things together, that they'll be very competitive. And my prediction early on this year was to watch the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been right with that, but the Rams did make a little noise last night, Byron, right? The Cardinals ain't going to run away with this division. They may be one of the best in there, but I think the Rams and I think the 49ers in the end will have something to say about it. I don't know about Seattle, though, Byron. What are your thoughts on last night's game?
Seattle's defense didn't even show up the second half. I mean, the Rams controlled the ball, controlled the game. Their defense dominated, the second half of the game. And, of course, when, Russell Wilson got hurt, that was the end of it anyway. But, their defense got a lot of holes. And so they're not playing the way Pete Carroll defense normally plays. So I saw where they need to – they got to do some maneuvering and maybe change some interior people or whatever. But their secondary is not really covering the tight ends and the receivers as well. So, of course, the Rams have great receivers, though. But really they revealed some of the weaknesses of the Seattle defense last night, the Rams did.
They caught the Rams at a bad time. Seattle coming off a loss. You knew the Rams are going to be up for the game. It's a short week, so that's a wild card involved. You never know which team it's going to affect more. And just like Arizona was a bit fortunate to beat the Rams, because the Rams are coming off a big game against Tampa Bay. And what's the mindset when you're playing an elite team? Let's say during your day, you're playing a team like the Chicago Bears. You're so psyched for that game, an elite game. You beat a team like that. And then the next week, how do you keep your emotions up?
Well, you really have to keep your emotion up, but you have to create something in practice to make it fun for the players, as well as to know that these are pinnacle moments that where you got to make sure that you stay up and carry the momentum into that next game. And great coaches can do that, and that's what I liked about Bill Parcells. He was able to mix some emotion and the feeling and know how to put the game plan together and make it exciting for us. So we went in with a lot of momentum, knowing that you got to win this game. It's a pivotal game, and you have to win at pivotal moments. So those are some of the things I think it get to where the coaches have to get involved, engaged, and make it really fun for the players to understand what's important, what we need to do. And at the bottom line, error-free football. You can't make stupid mistakes out there on the football field and things like that. Little things really matters when you're trying to put some win in place. Get on that win roll. Like we got to win 5 in a row. Things like that. That just carry momentum, and and the good thing about that make practice so much fun. You look forward to going into the facility and get prepared for the game that you scheduled to play.
Yeah, Geno Smith got criticized yesterday for throwing a key interception. But to me, it looked like he threw the ball where he was supposed to, and the receiver just fell down. What was your take on that?
Yeah, no doubt. He threw the ball, and of course, the receiver did fall down. But he got to look at other receivers. He was looking at 2 receivers last night when he was throwing the ball. He was looking at Metcalf and number 16. I've got his name, but yeah. And so he needs to look at the tight ends and the running backs. Some things that you have to do. You know that the Rams defense line gonna put pressure on you. But what I don't like about Geno, he's more like a pocket present passer. And so if you keep him in the pocket, he gonna try to be itchy on throwing that ball. And I think the Rams defense and the concept was really great on what they had to do with him. They only rushed three down linemen most of the time when Geno got in there.
Yeah, I mean they wanted him to throw the ball is what it looked like to me. So Byron, you when you played, all players their career comes to an end eventually, unless you're Tom Brady, and even the great ones, right? And I'm looking at Big Ben from that big class with Eli, Phillip Rivers. Me and Jack talked about it a little bit. And it looks like Big Ben's career is kind of coming to an end. Maybe he should have walked away this year. I'm not sure. With a little help from his offensive line, right? They're not helping this guy out at all. I mean, he's under constant pressure, getting hit all the time. I mean, you've seen some players as you were, in football that were really good, and they have a hard time walking away from the game. So, what do you think? What do you think a person like Big Ben will do after this year? Do you think if the Steelers don't want him, that he will push on to another team, that maybe he'll just say that's it for Pittsburgh? Because there's been a lot of great ones, and like I said, me and Jack talked about it. Namath, Unitas, that were legendary quarterbacks. When their time was up with their teams, they went and played for another one. It didn't work out too well for either one of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what it comes to Big Ben. He definitely said he wanted to retire as a Steeler, and I don't know if he want to play for another team, but when you get 39, 40 years old, it's time to start thinking about exit and what you're gonna do in the next afterlife after football. But definitely, he's a legend. He's done remarkable things. But too, you have to look at his offensive line. You have to look at the receivers staying healthy, things, and then running backs. I mean, they still have to put key components around Big Ben, but I think he still can play. I really do. But I just think, his leadership, the things that he have done, he's reduced his salary just to make sure they sign some key players in there. But you know, I just don't want to throw in the towel right now early on. It's just the first part of the season. So, you know, just let the season roll on, and maybe after like the 15th game, he can start deciding what he want to play. But a player usually have that feeling whether or not it's time to hang your cleats up and move on to something else. And but you know, I just enjoy his leadership and enjoy what he brings to the team. He always trying to say the right thing when they interviewing him on TV and things. So you know, he loved those Steelers. So I would still give him a chance this season. I think they got some pieces and some things that they can do to kind of help him out, and maybe just dump the ball off to the running back and tight end a little bit more in their offensive plan and scheme of things. But you definitely want to continue to see his see if we can make it happen this year, because they have so much invested in him as well.
Well, you know, I'm looking at a couple teams here. Buffalo, after their loss to the Steelers, is
Right.
just is out of control, right? They won 40-0. I know it was against the Texans, but it's still an NFL team, right? You don't see that like an NFL team.
45-0.
I'm trying to be nice, Jack. Jesus, God, don't kick them when they're down. But Buffalo, anyway, that's like a college score, right, Byron? That's like Alabama versus the University of, the Pencil Pusher Community College, right? That's not even a game. Have you ever been in a blowout game like that where somebody just totally just destroys you? And what is that feeling like if you have, Byron?
Well, I haven't been in a blowout game hardly ever in my career, but you know, I've been on some losing teams, but not blowouts. But it really feels it's empty. You know, you have to look at yourself and say, what are we doing? We're professional athletes here. You know, you got to have some pride about it too. And sometimes when you see guys just quit and you're supposed to be a professional, it's not a good feeling at all. You know, you practice harder. The practice, you don't want to go to practice. I mean, you really don't want to. It just makes you feel empty inside. So I just think too, you know, football players have a lot of pride, and I think somehow, some way, some leaders got to step up on that team to make sure that, hey, we don't lose all out. We know we got to play for something, and your job is, you know, you want to play away from being retired, and so it's a lot of things you need to think about. But you know, it's not fun being on a losing team. I don't care how you look at it. You know, it's just not fun. And so some of the things like that, you have to just say, man, somebody got to pick up and be a leader on this team. And let's see if we can change the momentum that we have on this, you know, and watching the game film. Oh, that's a long, sick moment in the film, watching the game after loss, especially if you don't score no points in the National Football League. It's not a good feeling at all.
You know, and what I hate, Byron, and I tried not to say this when I coach, well, it's time we go back to basics. Listen, it's what basics? You're a professional football player, and you've been playing football almost all your life. You're in your fourth game. If that's what you got to do, then, man, you guys are in trouble. And that's the catch-all phrase I hate to hear come out of a coach's mouth. I swear to God.
And one of the things that Vince Lombardi said, gentlemen, this is a ball. This is a football. It's that simple. They got to start back. This is a football.
Wait. Both you guys were such admirers of Joe Judge, having the players run laps and do extra push-ups. You were praising him for that stuff. I mean, come on. And now you're talking about professionals. That's the way you're treating professionals. And you're sending your assistant coaches away. I got this. Go away, fellas. You know, and then you're having them run around laps and come on and do calisthenics. I mean, come on. I
think Jack Byron has a hatred for Joe Judge that goes beyond just a regular hatred. I mean, listen, Joe Judge, that has nothing to do with basics. That has to do with inspiring and to tell his team what kind of culture he wants to put in there. That has nothing to do with basics at all. Jack has always got to bring that up when you're on about Joe
Judge as a special teams guy, and they lost the game. Because Dexter Lawrence was offside on a special.
There you go. There you go.
One of the things I always keep in my head, in my mind, sometimes you have to like throw some stuff in, you know, do some things that's not ordinary. You know, you have to do some things going back to the basic, just to see what the mindset of the players are. Just to mess with them. Sometimes you got to get tweaking here and there. You know about a tweak. And so you got to do something that normally, they did this when they played in junior high or whatever. Sometimes you have to do that just to remind them how simple the game is and that you still have to be focused. And the bottom line, you one play away from what? Losing your job and not being on this team. And these are the guidelines. These are the rules. You're gonna get on the board with us. Get on board with us. And that's what I love about the Giants, though. Ever since Joe Judge been there coaching, they've been in every game. You don't see them losing 45-0.
Good point, I guess. Let's talk about the Jets real quick. Jack's team. They finally get their first win against the Titans, and I know you were on rebuilding teams, Byron. How does it feel to get that first win when you start a whole rebuilding process?
I think they're excited. I think they done taste that win now. They're going to London, and they're going to be playing early Sunday morning. And I wouldn't want to be the Falcons because now you done just like last year when they started winning at the end of the season. The Jets, once they start winning, I think they're going to have some momentum rolling over to London, and I think they're gonna have their second win in a row. That's what I think.
I'm not giving an opinion on this. I'm just asking. A football team is supported by the public. They're supported by a fan base. And talking about the Jet game, Calvin Ridley, a key part of the Falcon offense, obviously, their main wide receiver, isn't making a trip to England. We don't know why. I know players have a personal life, and things should be kept personal, but everything is always kept personal when a player can't make a trip, can't play a game outside of a physical injury. I mean, shouldn't a little more word get out, unless it's something that's deeply, deeply personal? But all the time we hear, well, it's personal, they can't make a trip if they're not physically injured.
Yeah, and that comes with the NFL Players Association that, certain things, if they don't need to be revealed, they won't reveal it. So that's kind of like the rule and the structure, the way they got it set up. I don't know what he's dealing with, but I know his team need him. But it had to be something pretty hard-lived for him to not be able to go and play with the team. So they'll probably reveal that later on. But those are what. No,
I hope he's okay. I hope everything is okay. But if it's not truly of the very serious nature, and it's something where he actually could play, and be there, then I'm not for player being given slack. And I'm not talking about Ridley's case. I'm talking about in general. Too many players are given slack. Let's say their head's not into it for game. They might be docked the game's pay or something. And that's not even usually the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they do have a good some good guidelines to protect the players on their privacy. So that's kind of what this falls into, that category.
Byron, of course, you being a former Giant wide receiver, we do talk about the Giants when you're in here. They did get their first win against New Orleans. They came back and beat them, won in overtime. And the new wide receivers kind of had their way with the New Orleans defensive backs. I mean, listen, they played outstanding. Ross, Galladay, the new one they picked up, and their rookie wide receiver, very exciting.
Tony.
Tony, very exciting, and that's without Slayton, and that was without without Shepard. So they got Dallas coming up. I don't know what the status is on Shepard or Slayton. But the Giants shouldn't be afraid to put these younger guys in now. I mean, they proved themselves against a good New Orleans defense, too. That's a good defense. That's not one of the shabby defenses in the league. And it looks like Saquon is starting to get back to form. So Dallas is a good team. We know that. What do the Giants have to do to beat the Cowboys this Sunday?
Well, first of all, they got to score some points. Secondly, they need to continue to use all of those receivers like they did last week, and they just got to play error-free football. And I think they always have played Dallas hard, so I don't think they're gonna be shocked about coming in here and beating them. They have done it before, and I just think they stick to the game plan. Actually the Giants it can either be 2-2 or 3-1. Looking at the season, they kind of started slow. because now they got some momentum. I think it's good to go in New Orleans and win the game in overtime the way they did it. And they just showed that they have some talent on their team. And so I think you don't come in here being scared and saying, well, you know, the Cowboys and all this. Cowboys they're just a team like everybody else. So I just think if they come in, don't make no dumb mistakes, continue to keep the penalties down and things like that, I think you stick with their game plan. And hopefully Jason Garrett will have a great game plan. I think the Giants are going to be in this game to the very end of the game.
Well, I'm concerned the Giants' game plan defensively because I think they're going to try to put a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott has a knack for escaping, and then he buys some time, and then he hits a receiver downfield. And the Giants have been a bit weak at cornerback. I would be a little less concerned with pressuring him and take your chances in the pocket and help your corners double up on some of their wide receivers. It's tough. Dak Prescott looks outstanding this year. I mean, absolutely outstanding. And in other words, the way I'm talking, I'm not sure what the best strategy is to employ against him. Because like I said, if you try to blitz him a lot, he has a knack of escaping, running with the ball, and then going out of bounds, gaining yardage on his own. And every time he buys time, he eventually finds an open wide receiver.
Yeah, and if you look at the Carolina game and the Eagle games, I mean, the Cowboys didn't really dominate the whole game. I mean, there's spots in those games to where the teams could have took advantage of the Cowboys. And so their defense still suspect to me. I still say that if the Giants play a good game and you got Saquon now running and scoring, rushing, as well as receiving touchdowns the last game, you know, rushed a touchdown, receiving a touchdown. And so if they put together a good game plan, I think the Giants will be in this game from start to finish. And the Cowboys ain't really dominated no team they played yet. They just outscoring them. You have to put up 30-some points right now just looking at the concept of the game because of the way, you know, the momentum of the game as well. But I think Daniel Jones coming in and have a consistent good job doing what he does, doing what he can do. I think and they utilize all that personnel, wide receivers as well as tight end, as well as Saquon. I think they'll be in good shape. I really do, but because the Cowboys ain't no shutdown type team where they're gonna play some excellent defense. They don't do that. That's not their. They don't have that kind of talent on that team.
Well, you know, there's one quarterback that's thrown for more yards than Dak this season, and he's playing for the New York Giants. Offensive Player of the Week last week, Daniel Jones, who's been having quite an exceptional season, even in the losses. Byron, I'm concerned a little bit on defense for the Giants, too. Jack talks about Dak Prescott. The running game of Dallas and their offensive line has really come together. And I'm more worried about that than Dak Prescott right now because the Giants against the pass are okay, but against the run, they've been having problems this year, and that's what I'm more worried about than anything else. I think they got the defensive backfield that can be okay against Dallas, especially with I'm trying to remember his name out for the season for Dallas, their third wide receiver. I think they can play with them guys.
Gallup.
I'm more worried about Zeke and that other running back there that they have that is really starting to pick it up in the offensive line. Yeah, and the offensive line really playing well now. That's what I'm more worried about than Dallas's passing game right now.
Yeah, and I think hopefully we could go in and match up pretty evenly with them. But yeah, the two running backs have been very successful early on in the first part of the season.
Yes.
Well, I think the focus is on Jason Garrett because he's under a lot of pressure. So I think he's going to mix things up. He can't have just an unexciting game plan. I think they're going to try things they haven't done this season, maybe like a double reverse end around, a flea flick or whatever, go into a bag of tricks. And I think they might do that fairly early in the game as well to give Dallas something to think about. Because if the Giants are going to have a fall guy, if they're going to lose this game and lose decisively, it's going to fall on Jason Garrett unless the offense is high-powered. They're not going to – the talk isn't going to be to get rid of Joe Judge immediately. So Jason Garrett's basically the fall guy. So in a certain sense, his NFL career is going to be on the line, even though Daniel Jones is thriving this year. there was talk of Jason Garrett being interviewed for head coaching positions in the offseason. His stock is going to go way down as far as having a future, as an NFL head coach.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think Jason Garrett is going to be the centerpiece of this week. He can come real creative on what they can do and how they can move the ball and keep the game really tight the whole time. And I think Jason Garrett knows the Cowboys inside out. So I think if he can come in and master a great game plan and they win this game, I think Jason Garrett will be smelling like a rose. And he deserved that. And I just love Jason Garrett, and I think he can do that. And
the receivers tried to make it nice to an offensive coordinator, hoping they'll get the ball more, get on his good side, maybe see him on the side and say, look, I can get open. I can do this. I can do that. In a nice way during the week, come talk to him, hoping the offensive coordinator gets to like them personally a lot, and get it and wants their success.
Yeah, and I did that. I did that too. Like, especially when we played Dallas. I was in the meeting room early. I made sure Ron Earhart had some coffee. Stuff like that. Bring a donut here and there. So yeah, you can do that.
I used to do that for Mac before I got established on the show.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Hey, and I remember running the reverse. So they gave him the ball on something else that week. So yeah, you do a little something like that. You can have a player too that they can put in just for you.
Okay, well, that sounds great, Byron. I'm looking forward to that Sunday game. I think it's a big game for the Giants. I think it's more important for the Giants than the Cowboys right now, to be honest with you. They already lost a division game with Washington, and that's more important to me than the record. If they lose tomorrow, if it was another team, I wouldn't be as concerned as I am. It's against the Cowboys, and those tiebreakers at the end of the year mean a lot. So thanks for coming in, Byron. We'll see you again next Friday. Byron and Jim Jeffcoat will be on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. on Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, J&B Talking Shop, and join them on that too. Thanks for coming in, Byron. Have a great day and watch that game. Yes, Byron.
All right, yeah. I want to tell Jack that both of my grandsons had 2 touchdowns last week. 2. So
wow. Wait, was it a fumble recovery or what?
One was an 80-yard scat and run. The other one, the other kid had an interception. So we got to play in both ways. And we ain't talking about no special teams right now. So
what would you have said if the 80-yard touchdown got called back because someone was holding?
Well, I would just say, just remember that your papa scored an 87-yard touchdown against the Steelers. So there's still hope in those plays. So don't worry about it.
Was it a broken play or was it a bomb? Was it a bomb or was it a broken play?
Oh, it's a bomb.
That's what I like to see.
Yes.
Hey, I know you're excited about this weekend boxing match. Who you got?
I'll go with Fury by a wide decision. I think Wilder lasts the distance. I think he'll be cautious, and Fury by a wide decision.
I'll be right there watching that fight. So I love boxing. So
who are you picking?
I think you're absolutely right. I think Wilder just don't have it no more. He's not. You got to be focused. So I don't see him being.
Oh, he's focused. He just doesn't have the skill level of Fury.
Yeah,
that's all absolutely. It is. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Well, there you go.
So we on the same. We kind of on the same
page. We're boxing. We're on the same page. Now with football, we got to get it together a little more.
Well, we got to worry about those relievers, those quarterback relievers.
They're on the league. That's what Heineke is for the Washington football team. He's really a reliever during the year.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. All right, Byron.
Have a great weekend.
Take care, partner. Have a good one. So there you go, folks. Byron Williams joining us every Friday as our NFL analyst. And, of course, he's a former New York Giant star wide receiver, so we do talk about the Giants when he's in. Folks, we're going to go to our first time out, our first commercial break for today. But on the other side, we got the social media sensation himself, a guy who loves the Philadelphia Eagles and, well, all the teams in Philadelphia anyway. And he'll be on with us, and Keith Engel will be joining us too. We'll have both of our favorite guests, my favorite guests anyway. They come in every week, and they'll be on right after this check.
If you're talking, they will hear you. killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live 8 to 10, Thursday through Sunday. This is our Friday show where we have all our weekly guests. We'll have a special guest coming on after Keith and Pags come on. We'll have Ron Lipton, famous referee who refs some of the biggest boxing matches that have taken place over a certain amount of time. I mean, he's been involved in a lot of big boxing matches, Jack. So we'll have him up. But first, backstage right now, ready to come in already is one of my favorites here. We do a lot of stuff off camera as well as on camera. The Philly sports guy himself, Pags. How you doing, Pags?
Good morning, guy. How are you?
Not too bad, Pags. I mean, you know, the NFL last night, the Rams showed us something, right? I mean, they showed that they're going to be involved in an NFC West battle, maybe the toughest division in the NFL, challenging the Cardinals and maybe the 49ers if they can get healthy. But, of course, we're here to talk about your Eagles. And the Eagles last week had a tough game against Dallas. They'll be playing the Carolina Panthers, who's no pushover either. I think they're 3 or 4-1 right now. So it's going to be a tough game for the Eagles again this week. So it's going to kind of test their mettle a little bit, coming right back against a very good team, Pags.
So that Carolina is 3-1. I'm actually down in Charlotte now, and I've been around, around the city, just taking all the sights in and such. So they played Dallas last week. We played Kansas City, and Dallas kind of ran over them a little bit. I mean, I think they rushed for over 200 yards. Also Dak threw for 4 touchdowns, but I think he threw for under 200 yards. So it's, they had the running game specifically against Charlotte or against Carolina is going to be key. And of course, that's been a challenge for us since we've been throwing the ball 100 times a game.
Pags, I don't understand it. I know you got a new coach, you got a young quarterback who's still a rookie until he finishes out this season, I think. And I would think they would want to help him a little bit more than they are right now. You're going up against some teams lately that can really throw the ball, and if he goes in and makes a mistake or the offense turns the ball over right away, they put up some points. There's no doubt about it, but they're not trying to control the ball. I don't know what the reason is. Have you seen anything of why the head coach almost refuses to run the ball?
Well, I can make excuses. Like for the Dallas game, by the time that we were in the middle of the second quarter, we had only had 8 offensive plays. So, and at that point, we were trying to catch back up again, and it's already 21-7. So we had to throw the ball to try to catch up. Against the Chiefs, it was a little bit of a different story because it seemed that the passing game was working. To be able to catch up, they just couldn't, as I say, put the puck in the net, and they just couldn't get in the end zone. So they went 2 for 4 with goal to go. And you can't kick field goals against the Chiefs. You have to score touchdowns. And we couldn't stop them. Again, it was, I think I've been telling this every week, 3rd and 1 has been a problem for the Eagles. They just cannot seem to stop anybody. And this is the first year that we have switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense. Yeah. And I am not really sold on that. And I know that Gannon was looked at as possibly head coach material, even more so than Nick Sirianni. But I think he thinks the personnel here is different than what it is. And I have a problem a little bit with what he's doing. He's been in zone throughout the entire time he's been here, and he does not blitz. And I feel a lot like that we have the same type of situation going on as we did with Schwartz, except that Schwartz was actually really good in between the red zones where you could stop somebody. Where this guy,
wait, you didn't like Schwartz when he was with the Eagles, as I recall. Am I mistaken?
No, I did not like Schwartz.
Oh, okay, so now you're singing his praises. I
am not singing.
That's like Keith Engel saying sign Gary Sanchez to a hefty extension. That's
don't be putting words in my mouth.
I actually put them on the same level right now. That I want to see some blitzes. I want to be able to see us stop somebody on 3rd and 1. I want us to be able to get off the field. And we didn't get off the field at all against Kansas City. 9 for 10 on 3rd down. 9 for 10 on 3rd down. You're not going to win any game that way.
No. Yeah, it's very true. And as folks see, we did bring in Keith Engel, who, of course, he covers the Patriots. He comes on every Friday with us, and we talk a little bit about the Patriots. To me, Keith, the Patriots and the Eagles are similar in a lot of ways. You both got young quarterbacks. You both don't run the ball. I think the Pats can't run the ball right now. The Eagles seem not to want to run the ball, even though they got a good running game. Yeah. And I mean, the Pats played well last week, probably good enough to win that game, but they missed the field goal. And of course, a win's a loss is a loss. Mac Jones, they say outplayed Brady. Well, it didn't really matter. Brady didn't have to outplay Mac Jones last week because the Tampa Bay defense played really well and was low scoring. So, what do you think? What do they got to do over there? Pags' fault in his defense, which I really don't fault, because if you go against Kansas City and you go against these high scoring teams, you're not going to really be able to stop them. The only thing you can do is kind of control them and maybe control the football, which the Philadelphia Eagles, to me, again, and I know I said this 100 times, seem not to want to control the football. I don't care if you're down by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. You got to keep that offense off the field. So with the Patriots, the defense is playing okay. You have the offensive line for some reason. The Pats normally have a good offensive line. What's going on over there? How come the Pats can't run the ball?
Well, part of it is the offensive line has had some problems. Wynn's been banged up. Trent Brown's been out for a couple of games, and his backups have not efficiently replaced him. They haven't committed to the run to even try to run the football the last couple of games, probably because they know they can't. And it's not just the run blocking, it's the pass blocking too. Mac Jones has played very well, but he's getting beat up back there. I mean, he had 12 hits last week. Brady only had a couple that we didn't get to him. I told you last week one of the keys of victory was going to be getting to him and rattling him a little bit, because you can do it to him. They really didn't do it. But Mac Jones was under duress, as he's been almost every play of every.
Brady was under a lot of duress too, Keith, but he gets rid of the ball quicker than Mac Jones. That was the key.
Well, that's a very good point, Jack, for sure. He did get rid of the football and always has gotten rid of the football because he's not a mobile guy back there. But you can't give your quarterback, 12 hits they had on the quarterback last week. Forget about sacks. Sacks are bad enough. You got to look at the hits and how much duress the quarterback's under. Mac Jones has played tremendous considering how bad that offensive line has played. And defensively, real quickly, early, especially against the Saints, we had the same problem that Jamie was talking about with the Eagles. Just couldn't get off the field on third down. And that's the worst sin to me in the NFL. And you let plays or drives just continue, you're going to wear out your defense, and there's all kinds of repercussions that roll downhill from there.
Yeah, listen, I think both teams have a chance by the end of the year to get better. I really do, because I think, it just takes a couple of wins. It takes a new feeling, and it takes everything. I looked at offensive coordinators, head coaches calling the games, right, and calling the plays. You saw Chicago play better when Nagy gave over the play calling to his offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Does your head coach call the plays, or do you have an offensive coordinator that calls those plays?
He does call the plays. Sirianni calls the plays, and which is a little, I'm not a big fan of learning on the job in general, where, hey, you have to learn how to be a head coach and you have to learn how to call plays for the first time. Because he's never called plays before. So it's like you're learning everything on the job. And I guess you better have a very big, very steep learning curve. Yeah. Where you better go up and come back down again, so that you better learn this really fast, or else you ain't going to last very long. I mean, there's already a little bit of chatter saying that this may be a one and done if they do not turn it around quickly.
Even Belichick doesn't call his own plays even. I mean, he's got the last say. The head coach is always going to have the last say on whatever play gets called on offense or defense. But even Belichick delegates those overall duties, right, to an offensive coordinator. And we don't have a real defensive coordinator, but his son Steve is, for all intents and purposes, calling the plays on defense. So that tells you there's a lot to do for a head coach.
And there's a big difference between the way Belichick does. Belichick is where the buck stops.
Oh yeah,
with the defense, the buck stops literally with Gannon, and with the offense, it stops with Sirianni, and that's the way the Eagles look at it. I mean, that's how it was last year, with Schwartz and Peterson, and that's the way that they kind of deal with it. They don't have the top of the pyramid. That both sides of the pyramid kind of comes up to the comes up, and they kind of touch each other. So it's like they have the same amount of control on their side of the ball. And I think that's the way the Eagles kind of like it. And that's where I believe at the very, very top, you then have Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman that get to make those final calls.
Keith, this crossed my mind during the Patriot-Buccaneer game, seeing Stevie Belichick so intense on the sideline. Let's say Bill Belichick decides to step down, run the operation, be GM, be head of all the football operations, but that includes picking the next head coach. Everyone assumes it's going to be Josh McDaniels, but considering Stevie Belichick's his son, an extension of himself, what gives there? I mean, who would be the head coach if, let's say, Bill Belichick stepped down and had to make a selection between the two?
Well, I think it depends on when it is. If it's next year, which I don't foresee happening, I think Belichick will be there 4 or 5 more years myself, assuming his health holds up and everything else.
No, let's assume it's in the next year or two. Okay, not 5 years down the line.
He's not going to name Steve Belichick the head coach in a year or two. I don't think. That's just my opinion. He's not ready for that. I mean, he's ascended very quickly through the coaching staff. Obviously, I mean, it seems like just yesterday he was moving the cord out of the way for his father on the headset. You know, that's all.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a little bit of precedent when Weeb Eubanks stepped down as head coach of the Jets. His son-in-law, Charlie Winner, who had head coaching experience.
Yeah, he had
over Walt Michaels, his loyal assistant, who was the defensive coordinator on the Weeb Eubank for a good number of years. So there's precedent there.
Bad choice, but you're right. He did have experience before he got to the Jets as a head
And
coach.
how did that work out? How did that work
out?
Badly.
Dick Vermeil's nephew, he had, what was his name? Louis something.
Yeah.
He had him on the returning kicks for the longest time for the Eagles, even though he wasn't that good of a kick returner.
Look at the pressure. The pressure on the next New England head coach is going to be enough without it being the son of Bill Belichick, I think, myself.
Well, thank you, Jack, for bringing us right down an avenue I don't know what the hell we're doing. But anyway, Pags.
Unfortunately, I did. That's what I'm really concerned about.
You let Pags off the hook, Mac, with the Philadelphia Phillies last week.
Well,
you didn't even bring up their collapse to him. So, you know,
why would I have Pags on Friday when the Eagles are playing, talk about the Phillies who are not playing anymore? I don't know, but maybe next time we'll do that, Jack. Pags, you know, it's very rare for a head coach in today's league. I mean, it's been done before, right? An offensive coordinator, Vince Lombardi, great offensive coordinator, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Bill Walsh. I mean, you know, Paul Brown. We mistakenly think offensive coordinators can't be head coaches because, you know, I love the history of football. But it takes a certain individual to do both. I mean, Andy Reid does it, and he does a very good job at it. Sean Payton does it. You know, he does a real good job at it. But for most people, it's very hard to handle both because as a head coach, you're responsible for everything from the water boy to the chain guy to everything on the field to, you know, to rooms, to hotels. I mean, you're in charge of everything out there and your staff. And then when the game comes around, and you got to be responsible for the time management, timeouts, where you're on the field, what the defense is doing, what the offense is doing, and then try to call plays on top of that. It's very hard. Do you think that your new head coach is going to be able to do that? Is my question for you.
Well, he did it for game one. So there was a good improvement from the Dallas game to the Chiefs game in the offensive side of the ball. Even though they couldn't get in the end zone all the time, there was a significant improvement. My expectation is that if that continues, like this week is going to be a much better test. I feel that the Panthers are more along the same lines. Their record shows better right now, but they're more along the same lines as where the Eagles are. And although I kind of feel that they may be a little bit further along the path, they're only a couple of steps ahead. You know, it's not like that they are the Dallas Cowboys or the Kansas City Chiefs. So if they let up another 40 points this week and this game isn't as close as like even the 42 to 30 was not a close game. It really that last touchdown was garbage touchdown. So, I mean, if they keep it within a touchdown and keep it close and they have a chance to win at the end, at least that gives me a little bit better feel for the fact that they are moving and trending in the right direction. Mm-hmm. If they can't get off the field and they have the same problems that they have had for these first 3 weeks or these last 3 weeks, then we're going to have a much bigger problem on our hands. And although you say that you're not blaming the defense because it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, when you have the ball 8 times and you score 7 touchdowns, that tells me it's defense. That's not, That's not anything else. Or 7 times for 6 touchdowns. That's defense. That's not offense, because the offense scored points. You want to keep a team to 20 to 24 points, and you want to be able to outscore them. That's what this NFL is anymore. It's no longer, hey, you want to keep, if you can keep them under 20 points, you better win that game.
Well, the only reason why I'm saying it's not the defense is because they're on the field all the time, Pat. I mean, eventually the defense wears out, man. You can't expect a defense to stay in the field all the time against the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't. I don't care how good your defense is.
The time of possession was 31 to 29. So it wasn't like that they were so over the top. But
Pags, there's a connection in this game that Keith can talk about. Stephon Gilmore traded to the Panthers by the Patriots. He's going to be playing Sunday, and that's a big
he's not.
pickup.
No, he's
not playing Sunday?
Can't play Sunday. He's still on the IR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I thought he was due to come off.
He's on the pup list still, so he'll be coming off the following week.
Okay,
So, but even still, like the fact that happened, and we're having such a hard time at cornerback. How come like a 6th round pick? We've got like 100 picks this draft, and we couldn't give up a 6th round pick for this, or a 5th round. It's like, and then you get the guy that dropped from Dallas, the linebacker, who's been to a Pro Bowl, who's actually been pretty good. He was their 3rd best linebacker, so they got rid of him again to try to free up some money. That the Eagles have the most salary cap space right now in the NFL, and we couldn't get him either. He signed with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, it's like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand why they're not being a lot more aggressive. Like when I heard Gilmore was going to be dropped and then to be traded to the Panthers, for a 6th round pick. I mean, that's like we could have given him a 5th round pick, and we'd still have 99 picks instead of 100. I feel like we have like 12 picks in this draft, so
we would have taken it. So, Matt, let me just real quick address your original premise about offensive coordinators as head coaches and so much to do and calling the plays. I would argue, as great a call player as Andy Reid is, one of the reasons it took Andy Reid so long to win a Super Bowl with really good teams is the fact that his clock management was horrendous, part of it is because he's got his face in the play calling sheet. It's such an important part of the game is managing that clock, and he's been horrendous at it most of his career because of being distracted by other things. In my
going all the way back to the Super Bowl against Belichick, and Belichick is like wondering, he's like, does he know that there's only 2 minutes left on the clock? And he's like sitting there, and they're huddling up, and they're calling plays. No sense of urgency, and and it took, and to be honest, he still had the problem. It took Mahomes to say like, yo, what's going on? You know what? I ain't listening to you. I'm calling my own plays. And he was overriding the coach. And he actually he won that Super Bowl for him because he was having the problem.
You might be right, Pags, but Philadelphia's had a winning record under Andy Reid for the most part, right?
Don't get me wrong. Great.
Right. All right. So I mean, it's not like he couldn't do both. He did do both pretty well, even with the Eagles. He took them
except when they were down with 2 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah,
and it happened against Tampa Bay in the championship game. It happened against Carolina in the championship game. It actually happened against Arizona in the championship game. All 3 of those losses of the 3 of the 4. The Rams game was not that problem. They didn't have that problem in that championship game because they ascended really quickly, much faster than they should have. And that was when the Rams beat them. That was the greatest show on turf, and they only scored 14 points. So I mean, that was a much better team then. But he never was able to get to the Super Bowl until his 4th try. And that was when he didn't have to worry about the clock management because we were ahead by so much against Atlanta.
And Matt, I'm not bashing Andy Reid's coaching ability even a little bit. I'm just talking about how hard it is to do.
Oh, it is.
Job and watch everything that's going on.
It takes a special guy, and you got to have a great defensive coordinator to do that also.
Yeah. Even the best coaches are going to have some flaws, some small flaws, and that was one of his flaws. And you can't really help it. It is what it is, and he now is able to overcome it because of the personnel he has.
Yeah.
Philly has some real problems with the coaches overall. We talk about Nick Sirianni, and AV, with medical malpractice accusations with the Flyers, Doc Rivers with the Ben Simmons saga. I guess Joe Girardi's now your favorite, Pags.
Nope.
Good luck there, by the way.
Nope. He's going to be here again for another year. And I if you want to talk a little bit about baseball, I was very happy the way that the president.
No, it's Philly coaches. There's a little turmoil, going on, in the Philly town with the coaches, managers, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you got AV got something. Somebody out of left field said that, hey, he did something really heinous and whatever, and it's just that. There's always going to be media. Hey, listen, Santa Claus is going to come next week, and we're going to throw snowballs at him. It ain't even going to be snowing.
Yeah, there you go. Philadelphia. Yes, sir. Jack loves Philadelphia. So anyway, Keith, you've got the Texans coming up. It's a winnable game. I mean, the Texans did get embarrassed, so I think they're going to come out a little mean against you guys. But you do have a shot at beating this team. And of course, hopefully Sunday you give us a preview. But for the people that won't be there,
Mac, this is a must game for the Patriots. If they can't beat the Texans, the season is done. It's a must game.
There's Jack with his high outlook on the Patriots, and this is it, Keith. This is the end of the season. You lose to the Texans, it's over. So what do you think they got to do? Keep doing what they're doing, or they got to improve somewhere even to beat the Texans?
Well, you got to improve the protection of the quarterback. You got to figure out, this is a good spot to try to figure out the run game a little bit. I think you got to win this. I mean, you do need to win the game. I will tell you that I really think, looking at the schedule, the Patriots will end October 4-4, which is pretty much where I thought they'd be. I said they had to win. They were going to have some speed bumps and hiccups in the early season, and they would get better and better as the season went on, and they'd be in the wild card hunt, which I still believe, and nobody's going to want to play them come playoff time. And I've seen nothing to dissuade me from that. They had a stinker against New Orleans, a couple plays here and there. They could be. I'm not a big, I'm not a moral victory guy, as I said, but a couple breaks here and there, they're 3-1. But you are what your record says you are.
Exactly, because a lot of teams could claim that right now, Keith.
No, I get you. But I think they'll come out of this month 4-4. I really do.
Excellent. Pags, Panthers, as you say, I agree with you. I think the Panthers aren't the Chiefs, and they're not the Cowboys yet, but they are quickly getting there. I think they're improving organization. Matt Rule and the Panthers have done a hell of a job turning that franchise around. I think Sam Darnold kind of helps them out, having some experience and leadership there.
McCaffrey is important this week.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if he's going to play or not.
He says maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So it's up to McCaffrey whether he plays or not, and he says maybe. So, Pags, what do you guys got to do to win this game?
Well, I feel like that we have to take a page from the Cowboys and maybe run the ball a little bit. I mean, I've never heard a stadium of people chant "run the ball." So the last touchdown, the last touchdown that they got, they ran the ball. It was like that play was called by the fans. Yeah, because literally they were yelling "run the ball." I've never heard that chant before in a stadium, and it was deafening. It was deafening. They had no choice. They ran the ball. They scored a touchdown, and everybody cheered. It's like, hey, you listened to us. About time.
Pags, do they have to live with Jalen Hurts, the Eagles, the rest of the season? Are there any alternatives? If Jalen Hurts isn't playing well going forward, are there any alternatives in all of this? This just Jalen Hurts' team for the rest of the season, case closed.
I think it is. I think that he hasn't played badly at all. I think that it's been play calling. I mean, he had some bad throws against Dallas, but beyond that, I feel like even in the Chiefs game, there's only one throw that he threw that was a bad throw. After that, everything that he threw was actually a good throw. He tried to lead. I mean, 3 touchdowns got called back. And again, you can't take 21 points off the board and think that you're going to compete against the Chiefs. You're not going to be, he led them a little too much. There's some tweaking that has to happen, but I feel like that he's done well enough to be able to continue forward. If he was horrendous, there would be calls for Minshew, immediately. But he's been playing well, and I don't think. I mean, even his statistics are showing him in the top 10, if not really the top 3 of some of these statistics, top 4 and 5. So, I mean, he's been he's been doing what he's supposed to do. The defense has not been doing anything to help him. And, we finally start to get turnovers and, again, then they couldn't put the puck in the net. And that's a big problem. You got to be able, when you get into the red zone, you better get points. And if you're getting goal to go, you got to get in the end zone. You cannot continually give up 4 points every time you go on a drive because you can only kick field goals and not get in. And his play calling, from the 5 in, has been horrendous. I don't know how many times they've lost yardage on play calling, when it's like 3 yards to go to the goal line. You know what I mean? And you can't win that way. You got to have better play calling.
I just figured out their problem, Jamie. They're trying to put the puck in the net, not trying to put the ball in the end zone. They don't even know what sport they're playing over there.
And Pags, with a mobile quarterback, you should be able to come up with something really inventive down by the goal line when the threat of him to run or throw or hand the ball off. I mean, you should have a wide open playbook when you get close with a running quarterback like Hurts. So back to the original question, what do they got to do to beat the Panthers?
I think that they have to, again, run the ball some, and they have to get off the field on third down. They have to start to close their drives. They cannot continually give up these 3rd and 1s. They have to win the 3rd and 1 battle. And whether it's on offense or defense, they have to stay on the field when it's 3rd and 1. They have to get off the field when it's 3rd and 1. And as of right now, I did some research. We've had 19 3rd and 1s, and we have stopped 1.
That's bad.
That's no good.
You're not going to win games. You're not going to win games at all. And I've been saying it every week. It's every week. I mean, they had 6 3rd and 1s against the Chiefs, all of which got converted. They had 1 3rd and 15 that got converted.
Wow. Yeah, you're not going to win any games doing that. That's for sure. So, guys, I thank you for coming in as you always do. Hopefully, we see you on the Sunday show. Get you in for a quick update. Have Pags live from Carolina, which is always fun. Keith giving us his perspective on the Pats. I wish you guys the best. Listen, both the teams have a good shot of winning this week, and we'll see what happens on Sunday. You guys have a great day.
I'd like to see the Giants try to do a little bit of knocking off of the team that they're playing against.
Well, we'll see what happens, Pags. They looked okay last week. Let's see if they can continue.
I was a big Giant fan last week because the Jets and Giants win and knocked like 150 people out of a huge survivor pool I'm in. So
well, see, the Giants, everybody's fans of the Giants. It's great. I love it. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on Sunday, guys.
All right, have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, guys.
You too. So there you go, folks. Keith Angle, the Philly sports guy, joining us every Friday. They always do a great job for us. Jack, we're going to go ahead and take our last time out. On the other side, folks, stick with us because we've got one of the most famous referees in the boxing game join us. Has been around boxing almost all his life, and we'll be able to talk to him right after this quick commercial.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, I'm going to know.
Kids that age really listen.
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Jack is a legendary Hall of Fame boxing writer. Mac spells cat with the letter K. Mac played football and baseball for 10 years, coached football for 12. Jack was the wiffle ball home run king of the neighborhood. Jack was a sparring partner of the middleweight champion of the world, Golden Gloves boxer. Mac still reads cereal boxes at breakfast. Together they form the Sports Odd Couple. Both know sports in every way, but mostly at odds with their commentary and opinion. The Mac and Jack Sports Show, 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, Thursday through Sunday. Also on Spotify. Tune in and enjoy the show.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
Jackson sitting back there. Oh, I love it. I love it. Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitch. And, of course, we'll be on our other platforms later on, Northeast Streaming Sports, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all the different platforms. We're awaiting our boxing guest, Ron Lipton, to pop in. So while we're waiting, Jack, let's talk a little bit about the fight coming up tomorrow, a big fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. I know that you have Wilder winning that.
Fury.
Fury winning that. Is there any chance Wilder has it all?
Oh, of course. I mean, with his big right hand, and you never know the form Fury's in because all these delays and cancellations since their last fight, both guys have been inactive. That's the bottom line. But Fury's the more skillful fighter, the better fighter. I mean, for Wilder to win, it's going to have to be on a knockout, and it's probably going to have to be a sudden explosive punch that's going to turn the fight around. Otherwise, can Wilder really win more rounds than Fury during the fight? It's extremely doubtful unless he knocks him down multiple times. And, Fury could beat Wilder both ways. He could move in on him the way he did last time, or he could box him from the outside the way he did in the first fight, which most people thought that he did win. But with that said, is Fury going to be as good as he was last fight? I mean, he hit a certain peak last fight. So I anticipate Fury fighting him both ways. He'll move in on him. He'll box. He'll do some different things. I think Wilder's a bit more durable than people think. So I think this time Wilder goes the full 12 rounds. Fury wins widely on points.
Yeah, I just got a message from Ron saying that he's on. He's not on our link I sent through the email. So yes, you're on, Ron. But what you got to do is click on that StreamYard link that I sent you, and I think I still got it here. It's in your email. You click on that. You click on the blue button on the bottom of the next page to come in the studio, and then I can bring you on live. Otherwise, I can't bring you on. So you have to click on that StreamYard link, next page, click on that blue button to come into the studio. Then I can bring you on because I don't see you in the studio yet, Ron. So just go ahead and do that if you're listening. I sent it to you again. I hear somebody pop in, and it looks like Ron has popped in. Beautiful. All right, so we got our special guest for the week.
How come ESPN or Fox never has these difficulties, Mac? I mean, you got to really take some of these courses in production or not overrule the other producers in the studio. I mean, we got to get this down smoothly.
Well, this is what StreamYard provides me with, Jack. So I don't know what ESPN and the rest of them use, but we use this one. This is the only way we can bring on guests video. So let's bring Ron Lipton on to join us here. How you doing today, Ron?
Hello, gentlemen.
Matches in boxing. What got you started, Ron? What got you attracted to boxing?
Well, I had been in and out of hospitals from the age of 8 to about 13, real severe ulcerative colitis. I actually had to complete school from 4th and 5th grade on from the hospital.
Wow.
And I just was determined to get better, and I got into bodybuilding and wrestling, but boxing was always something that meant a lot to my family. My uncles were fighters, and I was intrigued by that, and I was determined to make that my new passion. So I started very, very young.
That's excellent. That's an excellent thing. And in boxing, I mean, I know you fought at least amateur. I saw that, and that you wrote a couple things about boxing, but you're most known for your work in the ring as a referee. And just give us an idea, some of the people at home, some of the matches that you looked over as a
Sure,
referee.
Mac. I just want to say a special hi to Jack. It was great seeing him at the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And extra congratulations to him. He has a wonderful family. And
Oh, yeah. Ron was an inductee this class, the 2020 New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. He has more of a historical perspective, a link to the sport than I do, because he's shared a ring, and I could name the fighters, right, Ron? Vander Holyfield, Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker. Those are legendary fighters. Who was the best, Ron, in your view, of those fighters? They're not all retired, so there's no chance of you reffing one of their fights unless they make one of these crazy celebrity comebacks.
well, one of the best I refereed was Roberto Duran.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
And,
Yeah.
We all know what he accomplished. But all of these guys were legend. I was very lucky in the early stages of my career to get those assignments. And they're all indelibly etched in my mind forever. They're in a niche of boxing legends. And it was an honor to referee them, as it was an honor to be inducted with you, Jack.
So Ron, when you're in there, you're going around the fighters, you're trying to keep them broke up, you're trying to keep them following the rules. Do you ever, like, for a split second become a fan and just look at the fight going on and say, "Oh my God, these guys, this is a hell of a fight. These are great fighters."
Honestly, I never allow myself that luxury. I stay incredibly focused on the responsibility that I have at that moment, because it's all half seconds and half inches, and just like that, the drama changes. So I stay intensely focused. I train myself ahead of time to do that. But I know exactly what you mean. It's like seeing a Gotti and Ward fight. You can't help but be entrenched in the drama, that's unfolding. I remember Frank Cappuccino, may his soul rest in peace, told me, he said, as I was watching it, he said, there are many times I wanted to step in, but I didn't want to be the guy to ruin such an exciting fight. So it's like a fine line. You're watching the neurological aspect of it. And as I said, things change in a millisecond. So I can't allow myself that luxury. I want to keep my cat-like reflexes, ready, able, and willing to get in there in a half a second.
Yeah, Ron, one of the big controversies in boxing, at least years ago, was whether or not the referee should be allowed to act as a judge as well, because the referee has a ton of responsibility, but also the referee has the flexibility to move around the ring and see punches landed from different angles that a judge might not be able to see, because they can only view it from their side of the ring and they're restricted. But as said, the ref has so much responsibility. Should refs be allowed to start judging fights again?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's an archaic concept that referees that want to be part of the show even more than they are seem to advocate for that. But in actuality, no. You're too busy. You have too much responsibility, and it's best to leave it in the hands of experienced judges. That's my opinion. I've heard it the other way around from some of the really old refs, but the motivation, there was an ambivalent agenda with that kind of motivation. And I'm fine personally with just having the honor to referee the fight. I did score a fight once. It was thrust upon me in Ireland. They ran out of the need for a judge in one of the fights. I think it was Ernest M16 Mateen's fight with Gary Delaney, and they kind of cajoled me into being a judge. I was refereeing Chris Eubank versus Steve Collins. And that was a very exciting fight. And earlier they said, be a judge, and I've been a fan all my life. And, there isn't one fight I can think that I missed, maybe one. Frankie DePaula versus Charlie Devil Green. I'm going to kick myself in the butt for missing that one. But I never missed a fight in the Garden. And you sit there in the realm of a judge, too, and a fan, So it's nothing I couldn't handle. But as a referee, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Leave it alone.
Yeah, Ron. I imagine ref having. I mean, you guys do have a great power in the ring. When you break fights up, warnings can take points away. You can even call a fight, say it's over. Have you ever got any? I've seen some video of refs actually getting hit by other fighters and getting into it with other fighters. Has that ever happened to you when you go to break it up and they get ticked off at you, or you stop the fight and they come at you?
Well, I've been hit in the ring. I know the thrust of your question, and the answer is no. But I've been hit because I'm determined to work very close. Remember David Tua versus John Ruiz? The referee, without mentioning names, was very far away, and the coup de grace there was one more left hook that almost tore his head off. So I never put myself in a position to stay that far away. And then in doing that, I've been hit. but that's part of the game. You know, I shake it off, and but I take care of it in the dressing room, Mac. I I speak to them a little bit differently than most referees do. I study all the tendencies. It's like putting them in a pipe and smoking them before I get in a ring. I know all the scuttlebutt, all the newspaper talk, but I study the fighters, every fight that I can get, where I know ahead of time on the fighter that I can view, I'll view it. And then I see things that I need to see. They might have a tendency to hit low. They might have a tendency to hit after the break. So I address all those tendencies that I've seen before in the dressing room, but in a manner that it's in the past. And I'm not accusing the fighter of having a tendency to foul, but I let them know that we're going to keep it strictly professional. And every possible contingency is addressed in the dressing room with me. And with the fighter and the chief second, I look them right dead in the eye, and they know I'm their father in there, not just the policeman, but I want to send you home in one piece, but you're going to adhere to the rules. Don't test me. Do we understand each other? You know, and so it works. It's done with respect. Some fighters, psychologically, you push the wrong button, and then you get someone that is going to disobey you. I do it in a way where they want to obey me instead of making them obey me. They want to obey me because they know I respect them. So it's all the manner in which you speak to them in the dressing room. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the hardest thing for a ref to pick up on are headbutts to see what causes a cut. Because I know just covering as a reporter, I can't tell a lot of time whether it's a cut, whether it's a punch. And TV shows replays, but they're not always conclusive as the reason why. Is that the hardest thing for a ref to make a judgment call on, whether a cut was caused by a punch or butt? Because that affects the outcome of the fight if it's stopped.
You hit it right on the head. That is one of the main problems. You're moving very quick. They work in close. A lot of fighters are experts at using their head. Evander Holyfield was like that. I refereed him twice on HBO and pay-per-view, and they're not going in there with the intent to be a dirty fighter. But once the blood is up, things happen, and they're working in close, and you know, it's a fight, and that is very hard to see, and that is why the instant replay is a panacea for that, and it should be utilized with no problems. You know, if you ask for a replay of it, what's the big deal? It should be
And
done.
for knockdowns as well, right? Is replay good for boxing, you know, to see whether punch landed that caused the knockdown?
Certainly, especially with a southpaw against an orthodox fighter, the feet get tangled up. There's a flurry of punches, and you know, in that potpourri of that exchange, there might be a trip. You know, so I don't see where it hurts to ask for a replay. That would solve a lot of issues, but that is one of the problems. So that's answering Mac's question, or both of you guys. Should a ref be a judge? I mean, you have your hands full trying to look at those two items that you brought up, the headbutts and the knockdowns. If it's a devastating knockdown, I mean, you know, like Johansson hit Patterson the first time, boom, right down, smash down. If it's a delayed knockdown or a flash knockdown where the glove might have touched. I had a fight with Yuri Orkis Gamboa on HBO. You know, it was brilliant, fast, and then they don't want to go down because you're 2 points in the hole, and they try to resurrect themselves. And did the glove touch the canvas? Did it not? And luckily, I caught it. But those kind of knockdowns, a replay certainly would be a great ally to depend upon.
You know, in sports, Ron, there's a lot of second guessing after something happens, right? I don't care. Our coach and I had a lot of second guessing on plays I called that maybe I shouldn't have, or done things I shouldn't have. When you're a referee, have you ever had second guessing on whether when you stopped a fight, maybe it could have went on, or maybe you didn't stop a fight and you should have?
Well, that's a good question, and the answer is yes. But with me, it was always to err on the side of caution. And I'd rather stop it too soon than too late. I've never stopped one too late. Never, not in 30 years. But sometimes, like, what are you stopping it for? And you want to say, because he's killing your ass. That's why. But,
Right.
you don't say anything. I just want to send them home to their family, well, safe and well. I know what a punch can do. I know what it's like to be hurt in there. And that's what helps me is, like I said before, studying the fighters, watching all their fights that are available. And I look at their records, where you're knocked out the last couple of times. I study. It's all preparation for me.
Yeah.
It's all that helps me as a referee. I talk to the other refs. A lot of them don't do that. Some of them do, but I do it a lot. Sometimes, Mac and Jack, you don't know what fight you're going to get until I get my bout sheet. But I look at the entire fight card. And I drive my wife crazy, because I get the assignment and I'm doing nothing but mainlining the videos of every single guy on the show, so that if I get them in the spin of the wheel, I'm ready.
I'll tell you, Ron, what bothers me the most about referees, and it hasn't been a problem with you, but it's been a problem with some other referees, allowing rabbit punching to go on. Totally inexcusable, very dangerous. It drives me crazy.
Oh, absolutely. I had a fight, sometimes, I tell them in the dressing
That's
room.
hitting behind the head for people that don't know.
Of course.
That's what rabbit punching is, yeah.
And we all know how that phrase came into being, because that's how they used to kill rabbits. They'd hit them in the back of the head. And that grisly tale, but nonetheless, that's the origin. But in the dressing room, I tell them, look, if you want to work inside, you can do it all night long. This is what I mean by being locked up. And I'll make them stand up and I'll show them. I'll pin their arm with the glove or their tape hand under my arm. And I said, you can go under, you can go over, but the last thing you ever going to dream of doing in New York is going to the back of the head. No rabbit punching. And like the mafia says, I worked organized crime in a prosecutor's office. I know a lot of mob guys. But like the mafia says, you've been told.
Right.
One time, you've been told. So they know I don't play. I'm not trying to be overly officious. But I had one fight where it looked like the guy got hit in back of the head. I was refereeing the first main event, I think it was. Well, it was the main event in the newly renovated Nassau Coliseum. It was Andre Berto and Devin Alexander. And Devin Alexander threw a hard southpaw straight left, and it hit him right on a potato, and he started to go down. His arms, and Berto had a tendency to be knocked down in his past fights. So his arms went askew like that, and he was actually going forward. And to finish it off, he threw two southpaw right hooks. The first one grazed it. You look at it on tape, and it looks like he hit him in the back of the head. But I sent it to a lab, and they played it back, and I knew that I trusted my judgment. And it looked like I let him get hit in the back of the head. The first one missed. It just grazed his shoulder. And the second one missed completely, but very, very close. And I caught a lot of hell outside the ring. You son of a bitch, you let him go down. It's not a knockdown. But he was going down from the southpaw left on the chin. So I called it a knockdown. In hindsight, I could have made a mistake, but he was not struck the way it looked like from a couple of rows back or even right up on the ring apron. So there's a case of the referee saw something that others didn't. But I said to myself, did I make a mistake? Did I let this guy get hit at that moment? I know that he missed him, I know that. So I warned him, don't do that again. Don't, he tried to hit him on the way down in his exuberance, in the heat of battle. But it happens. It happens. So it's a split-second judgment, but it's a dangerous thing because it goes to the brain stem and it can't be allowed. And I scrutinize that very strongly, especially after that particular fight.
Now, you've been writing, speaking of fights, you've been writing for Ring Magazine, Fantasy Fights. You started a series, Fascinating Matchups. Did it come out, your Liston Foreman matchup? Did it come out yet?
Yes,
It did come out. Who wound up? Oh, because it's out publicly. I didn't have a chance to read it yet. Who wound up winning and how?
I had, Jack is one of my favorite writers, and he's been rumbling a long time, for Boxing News.
But I don't know who would have won that fight. That's a hard one to pick.
I'm almost tempted because I want Jack's feedback on this one, and I want him to deliciously digest it as it is. So I'm very reticent to tell him the ending, even though it's.
I would have gone with Liston to stop Foreman in about 6 rounds. How did you have it?
I want you to read it, Jack.
Read it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Everyone okay.
I want you to read it. And then,
you have them at their peaks, right?
Of course.
Yes.
I used to write for Stanley Weston, for Boxing Illustrated. This is back in the 60s. So I've been doing this a long time. And then I wrote a few, they call them dream matchups for Ring Magazine in the past, where they had 3 experts give their opinions. So I was one of the trilogy of so-called boxing experts. So I've been doing this a long time, and it's a fun thing to do. But what I do is I put kind of a Quentin Tarantino spin on these stories, and it's like from Mad Magazine, like scenes we'd like to see, So I put that, the matchup through the Seth Brundle fly teleporter with the way it really would be, and then I add some delicious spice to it, the way we want it to be. The way we want it to be, the way it really is. That's why I want you to read this one. It's kind of a homage to the part of Sonny Liston that children adored. You see a lot of photos with children sitting on his lap, and he's been painted as the bad guy, an ex-convict, persona non grata. And Foreman is the American hero, the gold medal winner in the Olympics. So I kind of juxtapose that together, and there's a nice spin to the story because Foreman sparred with Liston in the embryonic stages of his career, right before the Olympics and then before one of Sonny's pro fights. And he had kind of a mentor-pupil relationship with Liston. And, I put that in the mix. So you're going to love it. I know it. You're going to love it.
That's excellent, Ron. Ron, we're coming up to the end of the show. It was a pleasure having you on. We'd love to get you on after one of the big fights you ref. I mean, that would be exciting if you'd be willing to do that. We'll contact you in the future after one of the big fights you ref and have you back on, because excellent guest today. Appreciate you having on. If we didn't run out of time, you'd be on longer. But thank you for joining us today, Ron. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and wonderful to see both of you.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Have a great day.
You too.
So there you go, Jack. Great get. Ron Lipton, famous referee, writer for Ring Magazine. Glad having him come on. Excellent guest, Jack. Good job on grabbing Ron for us. Also, Hall of Fame inductee along with Jack in the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. Folks, we're running out of time. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to all our guests. We'll be back tomorrow with our debate show. To let you know who I'm picking as a manager, I'm going to go with Buck Showalter, so you know, Jack. So now you know who I'm picking as the Mets' next manager. We're not going to tell you who Jack's picking. Join us tomorrow for our debate show. Thanks for joining us, folks. Have a great Friday night, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good one.